John, in terms of the impact of a Trump presidency on Australia and on foreign policy, how do you see this?
Well, let's put aside the personality clashes. The Trump cabinet will find it quite difficult from a personality point of view to deal with some of the Albanese people. But let's put that aside. When Trump gets in, he'll conduct an audit of allies. He'll look at how much are they spending on defence, what are they spending it on, when are they spending it, and what are they prepared to commit to. Now, I've spent a lot of time in DC. I spent quite a bit of time speaking to potential Trump cabinet nominees in the national security space. And I can tell you they are very well aware that, in their view, Australia is not doing and spending what it ought to. Now, Trump will come in. He takes alliances seriously. He's not an isolationist. He wants allies to pull their weight. And Australia is not one of these allies that he thinks are at the top of the list when it comes to pulling our weight. So that could be a problem for the Albanese government.
And that's going to be another exciting thing, of course, in the days and weeks ahead, will be who Trump picks for some of the key positions. He's already floated that Elon Musk is going to have some sort of role in his, administration, or at least as part of his agenda. Stephen, how do you think the Albanese government, Anthony Albanese personally, also Penny Wong, will have to try and respond to this new administration?
Well, it's not a matter of a standing start. The Australian Embassy in Washington, for a very long period of time, I'm thinking Andrew Peacock, Kim Beazley, right through to Arthur Sinodinos and Kevin Rudd, they've got very strong links both in the administration, in state, the Pentagon and the like, and perhaps even more significantly in the United States Congress. Now, I'm just back recently from the Australian-American Leadership Dialogue in Honolulu. Non-partisan, strong links with the United States military, good representation from a variety of policy players in Australia. There is a considerable consensus, particularly within the US Congress, that Australia is a very reliable ally, is a contributor, and that even with Vice President-elect Vance just recently saying AUKUS is a good idea, there is a fair amount of sentiment that the alliance relationship with Australia is more than worthwhile. Donald Trump will also look, John's right to look at defence spending, will also look at trade relations. And Australia, of course, runs a trade deficit with the United States. And that has had an impact upon Donald Trump before, which has been positive for Australia. So there's a number of things to weigh up there. I am not as pessimistic as some. I think a lot of spade work's already been done. A lot more needs to be done. And we really have to build some bridges. But if people like Mike Pompeo, for example, the former Secretary of State, were to come into a second Trump administration in defence, I think that would be a relatively smooth transition.
Yeah, and I think that would be an excellent appointment. He's a strong friend of Australia. I've interviewed him before twice, but he's very strong on national security issues as well. John, I just want to turn to the historic nature of this result. And Trump becomes only the second president in United States history to serve non-consecutive terms. The first was Grover Cleveland. He did 2 stints in the White House from 1885 until 1889 and then 1893 until 1897. So this is quite extraordinary. And in a sense, he probably was only voted out in 2020 because of his poor handling of the pandemic.
Well, what this tells me, I'm not a historian in American politics, but what this tells me is that Trump might have lost in 2020, but the issues that Trump raised, trade issues, defence issues, societal issues, law and crime issues, those issues haven't gone away, and they didn't go away under Biden. In fact, they got worse under Biden. So I'm not at all surprised that Trump has won this election. He ran on issues that people cared about. He didn't run on identity. He didn't run on some sort of social elite type issue. He ran on the sorts of things that white men, Hispanics, women, African Americans actually cared about. So this result doesn't surprise me at all.
I mean, Stephen, there are lessons from Australia to be learned from this as well, because economy was such a vote changer in this election, and we saw that in the exit polls. This should be cause for concern for the Labor government here in Australia.
Oh, it's a concern for governments in all Western democracies, and I'd also underline, Sharri, that immigration constantly recurs in Western elections. We saw it most recently in the UK, for example. It's certainly been an issue in this American election. So there are lessons to be learned for people in active politics in Western democracies everywhere. Could I make this point about Donald Trump? I'm certainly no fan of the gentleman, but his resilience has been extraordinary. It is astonishingly difficult to come back to the White House in non-consecutive terms. Grover Cleveland did it in the 1890s, mainly because of very poor performance by Republican administrations. You can see that in this win by Donald Trump. So what he's powered through would have felled many another man or woman in the political game. And I think that's worth acknowledging.
No, indeed it is. Stephen Loosley, John Lee, great to have you both on the show.